Good morning to all the conference dignitaries, respected colleagues, friends both on stage and in the audience, as well as dear students who are also joining us today. First of all, please allow me to convey my sincere gratitude to the conference organizer for inviting me. It is an honor for me to be here to share my thoughts with all of you. I sincerely hope my talk will leave a good impression with you and give you some useful takeaway points as well. As you know, we are still in the midst of a pandemic that has severely impacted our beloved tourism and hospitality industry. So it is understandable at a time like this to forget about green and sustainability issues and the role of tourism businesses in addressing those issues. But to me, a pandemic may come and go, but sustainability issues are here to stay. For as long as the world goes round, as long as we live and consume resources, sustainability will and should be our main concern. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to share with you my thoughts on tourism business's role and challenges in addressing sustainability issues at both product and destination levels. However, as sustainability is essentially made up of three pillars: economic, social, and environmental, my focus, though, will be only on the environmental pillar. I'm confident that you'll be able to learn more about the economic and social pillars of sustainability as well from the other speakers of this conference. So, what is sustainable tourism business from the environmental standpoint? As we know, global tourism has always been a significant and expanding contributor to economic growth until the day COVID-19 hit the world and practically stopped global travel last year. Before that, each day travelers spent more than 2 billion US dollars, with the travel and tourism industry accounting for 10.7% of the world's GDP and employing more than 260 million people. Although tourism offers undeniable economic benefits, it comes with a steep environmental price tag, whether it's a huge carbon footprints generated by air travel or human footprints trampling pristine environments. Travel can deplete and destroy local ecosystems and contribute to global climate change. At the same time, environmental disruption and climate change have the potential to dramatically disrupt general tourism patterns and do considerable damage to particular destinations. Rising sea levels, desertification, and changing weather patterns have the potential to damage and destroy the very elements that attract tourists to a destination in the first place. As a result, tourism and environmental sustainability are fast becoming natural partners. Their agendas increasingly intertwine. No other industry has had to walk the narrow line of environmentally responsible growth as carefully as the tourism industry, and arguably, no other industry has as much to gain or as much to lose. So, what is green business? Green business can be defined as business practices which are evaluated to be environmentally friendly. These practices might include the use of organic and natural products to build facilities, tighter protections against emissions, environmentally responsible sourcing of supplies, and designing organizations and processes in order to efficiently and economically use resources. Green business is to adopt principles, policies, and practices that improve the quality of life of customers and protect resources. Using renewable energy resources, enhancing material recyclability, reducing toxic dispersions are all eco-efficient practices while doing green business. Managing a green business can be considered as a cost unit or as an opportunity for saving money when integrated into daily operations of a business. Even though many business managers still assume that they'll have to choose between protecting the planet and making profit, many more now have a proper understanding on the fact that dealing with environmental issues can be a win-win situation for business. Take, for example, the hotel business. Hotels are one type of tourism business that could effectively address green and sustainability issues. For decades now, the term corporate social responsibility or CSR has been used to guide hotels wishing to be more responsible in their production and consumption. CSR led them to address their environmental externality through initiatives such as implementing green technologies and policies that contribute to the double bottom line of environmental sustainability and profitability of a tourism destination. Slovakia's popular Aqua City Resort, for example, which was designated the world's leading green resort by World Travel Awards, prevents an estimated 27 tons of carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere every day by using geothermal water and solar energy, practices that have also saved the resort millions of euros every year. Another example is Vancouver's Fairmont Waterfront Hotel, which implemented a heat recovery system that captures condensate, steam that has been condensed back into water from hot water tanks, which then heats incoming city water. This technology has saved an estimated 305,380 kilowatt hours of electricity per year, the equivalent of the annual energy needs of 7 private homes. Even small changes can yield tangible benefits. In a 12-month government-funded project, Tasmanian hotels reduced their energy use by a third by installing insulation, repositioning windows, and sectioning of rooms. Carbon emissions dropped by 104 tons, the equivalent of taking 24 cars off the road for a year. Even at macro level, destination level of tourism offering, green and sustainability issues remain relevant. A tourism destination is essentially a product being marketed and promoted to visitors in exchange for expenses they will bear in coming and staying at the hotel. And in today's era of environmental consciousness, every locality that wants to remain attractive and competitive needs a strategy for sustainability. A very good example that I think we could all learn from is Bhutan. For centuries, the tiny kingdom of Bhutan was sealed off from the world. Tucked into the misty crevices of the eastern Himalayas, the kingdom guarded its culture and natural resources so fiercely that it simply barred foreign travelers. That changed in 1974 when the government relaxed its isolationist stance and turned to tourism to raise revenue. Yet even as Bhutan sought to attract visitors, its tourism policy was carefully and strategically crafted to preserve local culture and prevent environmental degradation. By pursuing what it calls high-value, low-impact tourism, the small Buddhist society established a strict, sustainable tourism policy. Now, Bhutan is known as one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, with more than 72% of the country still forested. In addition, parts of Bhutan have been declared wildlife reserve and many mountains are closed for trekking for fear of littering and pollution. Today, tourism is a significant part of Bhutan's economy, and the kingdom's forward-looking policies ensure that its natural and cultural resources will be protected and attractive to tourists for years to come. Other destinations known to have similarly committed to sustainable ecological development include Wadden Sea of Germany and the Netherlands. Both of them are recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site due to their traditional reverence for nature as they welcome more tourists each year. Yet, for all these destinations that have risen to the green challenge, many others still lag behind. Destinations that turn a blind eye to sustainable practices risk depleting their resources and short-sightedly underinvesting in the preservation of their own natural assets. Destinations that underinvest in the preservation of their natural assets and trade their long-term health for short-term gain are squandering their most precious resources and chiseling away at their ecological and economic foundations instead of strengthening them. By borrowing against their future, they trade long-term health for short-term gain. Why be sustainable? What are the benefits? Greening a business serves as a strategy for sustainable development and competitiveness. As we all know, sustainable development has been defined as a development progress which meets the needs of the present without jeopardizing the needs of future generations. For a tourism business or a tourism destination, the environment they exist in and interact with should not be considered irrelevant because it is the sustainability of this same environment that could ensure the long-term existence and profitability of tourism. In addition, sustainable development should be one of the pillars of strategic business management because economical and equitable use of resources has been one of the most fashionable approaches of businesses today in addressing the competition and securing the future existence of their resources and businesses. The effects of climate change will continue to mount and become more visible. The growing middle class in emerging nations will create a larger tourism market. Competition will also increase as leaders in the tourism industry realize that pursuing a policy of sustainability is essential for attracting visitors and is also good for both environmental health and economic profitability. Stringent global carbon regulations will heighten the need for proactive, thoughtful, and swift measures. That is why business is increasingly aligning its activities with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. A recent report shows that 43% of the world's largest 250 companies are now linking their sustainability report to the SDGs. SDG 12 in particular, which focuses on responsible consumption and production, is the most popular SDG that business aligns to. Sustainable business practices are at the center of SDG 12. Key targets focus on sustainably managing natural resources, reducing waste generation, and raising awareness of sustainable lifestyles. Companies are also explicitly encouraged to adopt sustainable practices and report on their sustainability activities. Employing green technologies can lead to competitive advantage and help a business or a destination comply with whatever environmental regulations affecting them. In addition, eco-efficient measures can reduce resource consumption and costs. Besides cost advantage, taking care of environment and protecting the resources will provide good image that enhances good reputation relative to the competitors. Since reputation is a source of competitive advantage, green practices should result in enhanced cash flow and business performance. A much less validated reason for addressing green and sustainable issues would be consumer demand. While we like the idea that modern consumers are more environmentally aware and ethical in their consumption, the fact of the matter is to prove that a sustainable amount of such consumers exists to drive and demand for green and sustainable products is difficult. This is because, on the surface, there has seemingly never been a better time to launch a sustainable offering. Consumers, particularly the millennials, increasingly say they want brands that embrace purpose and sustainability. In fact, there was a report that revealed that certain categories of products with sustainability claims showed twice the growth of their traditional counterparts. Yet, a frustrating paradox remains at the heart of green business. Few consumers who report positive attitudes towards eco-friendly products and services follow through with their wallets. In one recent survey, 65% said they want to buy purpose-driven brands that advocate sustainability, yet only about 26% actually do so. One of the recommended reasons of why consumer willingness to buy green products somehow does not translate into actual purchases is the premium pricing strategy that green businesses often adopt. Companies offering green products have been viewing their offering just as a unique product that presents new business opportunities. Therefore, they overprice the product on the basis of it being green. On the other hand, overpricing does hurt the buying capacity of a consumer. For example, how can an average consumer be expected to stay in a green hotel that is 5 times more expensive than a regular hotel? Such pricing strategies make the product a niche product, consumable only by a section of the society, rather than a mass product that can be consumed by everyone. But pricing is neither the only issue nor the only solution to the problem. Green thinking should be part of an organization's work culture and ethics. A tourism company should want to make products and services that are safe for the environment and accessible to everyone. Otherwise, we will not be able to see the green agenda becoming mainstream. Clearly, despite the growing momentum behind sustainable tourism practices, many tourism businesses still struggle to communicate their brand sustainability to consumers in ways that heighten brand relevance, increase brand share or market share, and fuel a shift towards a culture of sustainable living. Hence, tourism business should work to understand the wants and needs of their target market, along with the various and benefits of realizing behavioral change and tailor their strategies accordingly. So how do we move forward in the sustainability agenda? At destination level, capturing the economic benefits of tourism while limiting undesirable environmental consequences should be the ultimate goal of a successful green strategy. The experiences of private and public sector organizations in many locales suggest that the most powerful strategies are those that take a holistic approach. These businesses treat each destination they oversee as a complete physical, cultural, and economic ecosystem. By crafting a sustainable tourism strategy through a multifaceted lens, policymakers and leaders in the tourism sector can ensure that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and at the same time make sure that no part of the system is neglected. Building a comprehensive blueprint for sustainability begins with addressing four key environmental issues. These are reducing carbon emissions, conserving biodiversity, managing waste properly, and protecting and conserving water. Let me illustrate to you in further details about the four key issues. In terms of carbon emission reduction, travelers must now be concerned with their carbon footprint because of its implications on climate change. This is because the tourism industry is responsible for approximately 5% of global carbon emissions, largely generated by air travel and lodging. A recent global study by the World Economic Forum predicts that without intervention, these emissions will double by 2035. Therefore, destinations should shift from environmentally destructive individual traffic habits to efficient mass transit and advanced automobile technology, including hybrids and electric cars. In countries where they are not prevalent, the introduction of cars with catalytic converters as well as new eco-friendly fuels should be promoted. In the same vein, policymakers should encourage guests to choose energy-efficient methods of transportation for arriving at their recreational activities. In some locations, visitors can be steered towards smart mass transit options such as electric trains and hybrid buses. Other locations can offer innovative options for individual vehicles such as bicycles and hybrid cars. Paris, for example, implemented the Philippe Bicycle Co-op program in 2007, which allows visitors and residents to reserve, pick up, and return bikes at 750 locations. The city currently has more than 230 miles of bike lanes, with plans for expansion. Israel recently created a network of bike trails and walking paths as an alternative to bus transportation for Christian pilgrims going from Nazareth to the Sea of Galilee. And Switzerland has seen a boom in the new generations of e-bikes powered by lithium-ion batteries, also for tourists. Destinations can also reduce the environmental impact by integrating carbon-friendly principles into their supply chains and purchasing sustainably sourced goods and materials. In addition, they can implement low-carbon waste management policies, including energy-efficient recycling. Finally, destinations can create incentives for tourists to offset their emissions, through local donation programs that invest in renewable technologies. As for biodiversity conservation, whether scuba diving in the Red Sea, exploring hiking trails in the Pacific Northwest, or venturing into the jungles of Central America, a growing number of travelers are reaching out to experience a world beyond their own. Destinations with natural beauty offer tourists an escape from the precious and sensory overload of urban life. Unique natural assets are therefore precious, and their preservation is a critical component of sustainable tourism. In the past 2 decades, tourism to biodiversity hotspots has increased more than 100%, making conservation all the more urgent. If proper conservation measures are not in place, tourism can exacerbate the damage and destruction of flora and fauna. Unregulated wildlife viewing has disrupted feeding and nesting sites in such places as the Caribbean wetlands and New Zealand. Mushrooming tourism resorts in India have encroached upon tiger habitats, both reducing the tiger population and leading to dangerous encounters for humans. In addition, more than 35 million acres of coral reef has been obliterated during the past few decades, largely through contact with cruise ships, divers, and other human activity. Policymakers eager to prevent this sort of damage should develop national parks and wildlife corridors, regulate access to potentially fragile areas, and protect indigenous species and control pests. In terms of waste management, waste affects both water and soil quality and can detract from a destination's image if treated improperly. Therefore, it is a major pollutant that needs effective management if a destination is to remain clean and healthy. No traveler wants to worry about contracting a disease on his or her journey, while smelly places can quickly change a tourist's perception of even the most beautiful locale. Unfortunately, the increasing presence of tourists themselves often adds significantly to the waste management problem, especially if untreated sewage from hotels and cruise ships is allowed to contaminate water and coastal areas. During the mid-1990s, cruise ships in the Caribbean Sea alone produced more than 70,000 tons of liquid and solid waste a year. The waste produced by the enormous influx of tourists to Venice over the last few decades led to pollution and flooding of the city's iconic canals, which caused the city to withdraw its application to host Expo 2000, a global exhibition welcoming the new millennium, out of fear of its future. Destinations must therefore invest in water management early, following best practices by reducing sewage and industrial waste streams, minimizing the amount of waste that ends up in landfills and incinerators, and recycling whenever possible. Ideally, waste should be used to generate energy. Cutting-edge methods such as waste-to-energy conversion can enhance a destination's reputation in the green playing field and attract potential investors in addition to bolstering environmental sustainability. In many cases, creative solutions can minimize environmental impact while adding to a city's reputation and attractiveness. During the 1994 Winter Olympic Games in Lillehammer, Norway, a waste management program was established to recycle or compost 70% of all trash generated. 1 million plates and 3 million utensils were produced out of potato starch-based starch, allowing them to be recycled into animal feed. In addition, 20,000 signs were recycled into cardboard boxes. In Kenya, where remote hotels and lodges do not always have access to municipal waste collection services, green waste is composted for use in vegetable gardens. Constructed wetlands will soon be recycling wastewater, and many camps and lodges were using biodegradable detergents to improve the quality of their grey water. Israel has transformed a massive garbage dump in the outskirts of Tel Aviv into a 2,000-acre park that will soon feature a recycling plant, hiking and cycling roads, and picnic areas. In addition, Israel has plans for an education center where visitors can watch the recycling process and learn about its importance for the country's environmental health. All these examples show that we already have experience in managing sustainably. The challenge is making such sustainable management approach mainstream throughout the world. As for water supply protection, an adequate and healthy water supply is crucial to any destination's long-term environmental sustainability. Severe water shortages continue to plague many parts of the world, and two major external trends, that is, rising populations and the potential effects of climate change, provide added reasons for concern about this scarce resource. Countries with water shortages that rely heavily on tourism face a double burden. Therefore, a smart, conservative policy to guarantee water availability is key to keeping both tourists and citizens satisfied. Moreover, since water supply and desalination systems are typically significant sources of energy usage and emissions, sustainable water policy is important for both its own sake and as a way to contain carbon emissions. For all these reasons, water consumption must be measured, controlled, and reduced to the minimum level necessary for adequate quality of life. Here too, investment in creative and technological solutions should be a priority. So addressing the four key issues above is crucial in developing a comprehensive blueprint for sustainability. The blueprint, however, also requires an analysis of the underlying systems and structures that a destination must have in place to enable change. These include regulations and governance, stakeholder participation, funding and financing, capacity building, and education, and market and public relations. In terms of regulations and governance, legislation should be ambitious in breadth and specific in depth, protecting the environment and limiting potentially harmful development in addition to encouraging positive behavior. Destinations can implement measures including green taxes, park entry fees, and pollution penalties, and can also subsidize investments in sustainable projects. In addition, they can implement smart capacity management principles that limit the number of tourists and optimize the yield per tourist in capacity-constrained areas. In Maldives, for example, to protect the nation's fragile ecosystem, tourism is limited to selected zones and a subset of uninhabited islands. Similarly, in the Republic of Kiribati, a tropical nation in the Central Pacific where unregulated fishing was decimating the island's national stocks, the government introduced regulations to monitor and control fishing enterprises. These businesses are now required to provide the government with an annual environmental impact assessment. All these examples demonstrate that the highest levels of government must sponsor sustainability programs with appropriate bodies at the national, regional, and local level spearheading and facilitating implementation. In terms of stakeholder participation, any truly holistic sustainability program requires the engagement of many different stakeholders. It is absolutely vital that government, the private sector, and the civil society collaborate to create and implement sustainable policy. Sustainability efforts can be driven by a wide range of stakeholders, including national, regional, and local governments, commercial or civil interest groups, and private players. At the government level, the Ministry of Tourism should collaborate with private and public sector entities responsible for the environment, energy, agriculture, and other relevant areas, as well as local municipalities. This type of collaboration plays a critical role in aligning national and local interests and helps speed execution. One example is Green Tourism Business Scheme in the UK, which is its only sustainable tourism certification program validated by the National Tourism Board. Businesses opting to join the GTPS are assessed against a rigorous set of criteria in areas including energy and water efficiency, waste management, and biodiversity. Those that meet the criteria receive a bronze, silver, or gold award based on their level of achievement. As the GTPS example shows, the entire financial burden of sustainability does not have to rest on the shoulder of local businesses or the backs of taxpayers only. Public-private partnerships can act as highly efficient sustainability program initiators. For example, a hotel can participate in a technology initiative by buying shares in a government-built solar plant. As the stakeholder with the most direct access to tourists, the private sector plays a key role in furthering a destination's sustainability. Hotel owners, tour operators, and transport services can influence tourists to make environmentally friendly choices. By offering accommodations with a small carbon footprint and sustainable water and waste policies, hotels can do much more to protect the environment. Private sector institutions, such as NGOs and universities, can provide critical research and advocacy, educating locals and visitors alike. For instance, a university-produced interactive exhibition on a destination's unique environmental challenges can be marketed as an activity for tourists. In terms of funding and financing, destinations contemplating a green initiative may be concerned about financing. However, many green programs, such as the implementation of energy-efficient technology, will have strong financial returns and can be easily and successfully implemented as private for-profit investments. Some of these initiatives pay off quickly through savings in operating costs. This saving can then be recycled into other green investment projects. The ease and speed of recouping green investments depends on the choosing the right investment plan and having appropriate political framework and local policies in place to support it. Setting the correct economic balance between the public and private sectors is key. If the incentives for attracting private investments are too generous, the result can be burgeoning but underfunded growth, with a high burden on taxpayers. On the other hand, if incentives are too low, the investment strategy will fail to attract enough businesses to be viable. This balance is critically important for both small-scale private incentive initiatives and larger infrastructure initiatives and can help determine the choice between them. Depending on the local's climate and geography-driven opportunities, larger initiatives may make more economic sense, such as building a solar plant that can power an entire area rather than encouraging individual solar panels on homes. Destinations can often generate revenue by leveraging on their own unique resources, such as charging fees to visit protected areas. For instance, Venice has fixed entrance fees for its parks, and it uses to maintain to protect these fragile areas. The fees are discounted for locals. Bhutan charges tourists mandatory tariffs to sustain its environment. With regard to capacity building and education, beyond theory and policy, the transition to sustainability requires a variety of local residents to be involved. Lawyers, park rangers, and cleaning staff will all be needed. So will educators and advisors. A destination that is seeking private sector investment should ensure that critical information about the benefits and opportunities of green initiatives is prepared carefully for them, often by enlisting local experts for help. The design of educational and capacity building campaigns must contain a training program that allows locals to achieve best practices and encourage them to implement and promote green policies. Lastly is the marketing and public relations. A strong marketing and public relation campaign is essential for any green initiative. An effective campaign can encourage stakeholders to participate in programs and address potential visitors. For example, New York City has created the powerful Green Map of NYC, which guides visitors on a tour of the city's energy efficient resources. The map highlights include the biomass-powered Statue of Liberty, underwater turbines that generate low-impact electricity in the East River, and a warehouse of reusable building materials in the borough of Queens. So, how else to move in the sustainability agenda? Another possible strategy would be to address the elusive green consumers issue. Business marketers could try moving the sustainability agenda forward by narrowing the intention action gap using marketing fundamentals to connect to consumers with its brand purpose. A report in Harvard Review has identified four actions for companies to consider. They include the use of social influence, shaping of good habits, deciding whether to talk to the heart of the brain, and favoring experiences over ownership. For the first one, changing consumer behavior using social norms could work because humans have a strong desire to fit in and to conform to the behavior of those around them. So, if they are told to behave in certain ways because others are already doing so, chances are high that they will comply. Harnessing the power of social influence is one of the most effective ways to elicit pro-environmental behaviors in consumption as well. For example, a research has found that telling online shoppers how other people were buying eco-friendly products led to a 65% in them making at least one sustainable purchase. Telling buffet diners that the norm was not to take too much food at once decreased food waste by 20%. Using a social influencer or a celebrity as an advocate could also be useful. Advocates are most compelling when they themselves have undertaken the behavior. Social norms, political view, and overall tendency to negatively associate sustainable products with low quality, less aesthetics, and high price are also a problem that must be addressed. One way to offset such negative associations among consumers is to highlight the product's positively viewed attributes such as innovativeness, novelty, and safety rather than their green credentials. This is what Tesla has been doing to promote its car by focusing more on the innovative design and functional performance of its cars more so than on their green credentials. This strategy seems to have worked with its target market. The next strategy is to shape good habits. We humans are creatures of habits. Many behaviors, such as how we commute to work, what we buy, what we eat, or how we dispose of products and packaging, are part of our regular routines. Often the key to spreading sustainable consumer behavior is to first break bad habits and then encourage good ones. For example, a restaurant could stop offering plastics with their drinks, plastic straws with their drinks, unless the consumers explicitly ask for one. Another strategy is to make the desired action easier by, for example, placing recycling bins nearby, requiring less complex sorting of recyclables, and providing free travel cards for public transport. Subtle techniques such as using prompts, such as text messages, reminding people to engage in desired behaviors, using feedback that show a consumer's usage compared to that of others, and using incentives could help encourage sustainable behaviors and tendencies. Marketers could also decide whether to talk to the heart or the brain of the green consumer. For companies, how they communicate with consumers has an enormous influence for the adoption of sustainable behaviors. When getting ready to launch or promote a product, or a campaign, marketers often have a choice between emotional levers and rational arguments. Either can be effective, but only if certain conditions are met. For the emotional appeal, people are more likely to engage in a behavior when they derive positive feelings from doing so. This core precept is often overlooked when it comes to sustainability, for which ad campaigners are always likely to emphasize disturbing warnings instead. Research has found that hope and pride are particularly useful in driving sustainable consumption. In one study of energy consumption, a group that was publicly praised each week for their energy efficiency efforts, thus engendering pride, saved more energy than a group that was given a small weekly financial rewards instead. As for the rational appeal, it works because people are unlikely to undertake a behavior unless they have a sense of what researchers call self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is confidence that their actions will have meaningful effect. Thus, one key to marketing a sustainable product is communicating what effect its use will have on the environment. In addition, messages that focus on local impacts and local reference points, messages that communicate the concrete effects of sustainable consumer behavioral change, that communicates clear consequences of non-environmentally friendly behavior, and that promises something tangible to reward their support of a brand or a cause are particularly powerful. Last but not least is the need to favor experiences over ownership. Along with working to change consumer behavior, some companies have found success with business models that seemingly make consumers more open to green alternatives. In the green economy, for example, companies such as Tingley offer experiential options as an alternative to material goods. Tingley, whose tagline is "Give stories, not stuff," also let consumers buy adventures rather than tangible products as gifts. In addition to potentially sustainability benefit, research shows that giving an experience makes both giver and receiver happier, leads to stronger personal connections, and cultivates more positive memories. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I have been able to impart some new knowledge to you today. Thank you for listening. It's good to be with you, and I hope that you're having an enjoyable conference experience. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.